I hate it when you're sitting around and they say, well, tell me something about you so I can, say something from the podium. And I said, just tell them I'm an alcoholic. That works. My name is Sandy Hickox, and I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is November 14th, 1983. Yeah. My home group is a Chubbuck group in Pocatello, in Chubbuck, Idaho. It's a suburb of Pocatello. And I met a lady in the audience that's moving back. Her and her husband are moving back to Pocatello, and so I look forward to seeing them. It'll be about a year before they get there, but yeah, look forward to seeing them there. I want to thank the committee for inviting me here. This is just beautiful, just beautiful. Me and Karen talked a couple of times, and she said, I broke my ankle, so will you drive? When I pick you up, I go, well, yeah. She said, well, can you drive a stick shift? I go, yeah. And my husband says, just like you. You don't know where you're going. You ain't never been there before. You don't know who's picking you up, and you driving. So my sponsor was right. I am sicker than most. But I was willing to drive. I mean, I can read a map and I can take directions sometimes, and then Karen picked me up, and then we had an opportunity to spend some time with Susan, and she chauffeured us here safe and sound, and she brought us the scenic route. Oh my God. Karen's up in the front about to puke, and I'm in the back reminiscing. I'm serious about that, because I was born and brought up in Georgia, and in Idaho they don't have dogwood trees, okay? In Idaho they don't have all the ditches, and you can hide a house in one of these ditches, and and we do. But I'm sitting in the back. I'm sitting in the back, and I am so full. I'm just so full of gratitude to be here, and Susan from here up looks absolutely like she could be the twin sister of my first love. Now, we had a lot of time in the country taking the scenic route, and I'm just sitting back there so full. He was the one that taught me how to kiss and all this kind of stuff, and I'm back there in heaven. And I got out of that car, and I was so full of just gratitude and remembrance, and the things that you don't know that you miss because they're not around you. I didn't realize how much I missed the dogwoods. I didn't realize how important that one guy was to me in my life, and he took care of me in some pretty scary situations, and he never took advantage of me and any of that kind of stuff. So it was really powerful for me to have that ride, and I'm grateful for you for doing that, for being part of that. And I cry a lot, and if that bothers you, you can leave now because it gets worse. I come up around a big pack of boys, and they would beat you trying to make you cry, so you never did, because they'd just hit you harder. And when I got sober, y'all gave me the privilege of those tears, and you allowed me to feel how I feel, and I appreciate that. I didn't come here to get sober. I came here to get out of trouble because I was looking at going to prison, and somebody said, well, if you go to treatment, it'll look good for your job. And I said, sign me up. And I didn't know what treatment was. I'd never heard of it. People I was hanging out with didn't go. And so I'm on the front steps of the trailer, and I got my clothes pressed. I'm like a little schoolgirl going the first day of school. I didn't know you could go to treatment drunk. I didn't know. I had no idea. And an AA man and Al-Anon lady picked me up, and they took me to treatment. And on the way there, I found out that I had signed up for something over my head, because they were talking some serious stuff here. Now, the trouble I was in was serious enough to have me sign up for treatment, but treatment sounded a lot worse. Sometimes, there's a speaker around AA. He talks about being door number 3. And at this point, I'm looking for that. And but I didn't get out of the car. I stayed in the car, and they took me to treatment, and this Al-Anon lady, she was powerful in my life. We got to that treatment center, and the AA guy's off signing me up for treatment, and she's got a hold of my arm, and because I'm shaking worse than I am today, and I'm scared, and I realize that this might be a mistake, and so she's got a hold of me, and she ain't letting me go, and we walk. She takes me to the front doors of that treatment center, and she opens them up, and she kind of shoves me through and closes the door. Well, that ain't no big deal if there's a door handle on my side, but there wasn't, So I'm up there at that window, and I'm looking at her, and I just know, I mean, I'm crying real tears now because I am scared to death. And I just know if that woman looks back, I got her, she'll let me out. You know, that heifer walked all the way back to the car and never did look back. I hated Al-Anon. While I was in this treatment center, you know, I had a lady tell me, she come in, she was talking to me about some stuff, and she said, honey, you don't ever have to feel the way you're feeling inside ever again unless you choose to. You know, and I thought she was lying to me because I had heard that a lot. You know, I'm born and raised in the South, and I'd been to those churches and tried to get the feeling that y'all had and get a different feeling than what I had, and none of it ever worked, you know, and I know this is just going to be one more gamut. She said, all you got to do is do what we ask you to do. You know, and I said, well, what the hey? You know, I haven't played the games. I mean, I've been married a couple of times, and, you know, I mean, I can do the deal for a certain period of time, and then I quit and run like I do everything. And, you know, so I figured, what the hell? I mean, what the hey? I'm trying. And, well, actually, I need to quit saying I'm trying and just say I'm doing it. Move that, yeah. So y'all forgive me if I offend anybody. But anyway, I'm in this treatment center, and she tells me that, so I just start doing what they asked me to do, and I do an inventory, and I find out that the reason I'm an alcoholic is not because my dad left my mother when she was pregnant with my youngest brother. It's not because we were on the other side of the tracks. It wasn't because any of the things that I had blamed. It wasn't because of my mother, because she was like my best number one enemy most of my life. It wasn't because she kicked me out when I was 14. And today I know that story different because I've heard her side. She didn't kick me out. She told me I couldn't drink in her house. Hello. She kicked me out, right? I found out in that treatment center that man wouldn't have hit me so much if I'd have shut up. You know, but I'm like a little Chihuahua dog, boy. And you get me liquored up, and I'm like two of them. Yap, 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 yap. I'm right on your heels, and I ain't letting go. I think I'm big, bad, and bulletproof, and I'm about that tall, you know. And I know today, and I'm not saying that he wouldn't have hit me anyway, but I'm saying he wouldn't have hit me as much, you know. And I had to look at the part I played in all that. I'm a touchy-feely kind of girl, and you get me liquored up, and I'm really touchy-feely, and I don't care who you belong to or who he belongs to. You know, I share with everybody, you know. And he didn't like that. And then he'd get mad, and then we'd get in a fight, and I'd come to the next morning and find out I lost. And that was my life one day at a time. But I thought that was the reason I was an alcoholic, but, you know, I know that's not true. I found out in that treatment center that the reason I tried to kill one of my younger brothers under the house is because I hated him, you know, because I was jealous of him. You know, I mean, he was the perfect everything, and I was right the other end of that. And I just hated him and growing up, and I found out through an inventory that I was jealous of him because he had all those positive strokes, and he was doing all that stuff good in his life, and I was going right the other way. And I didn't know how to stop it. It was kind of like a freight train running out of control. And I found out that in that treatment center that there's women like me. I didn't know that because I'd always run with a big pack of boys. I mean, I lived with 3 brothers. We were beside 7 boys at one time and beside 5 boys at one time. I probably didn't hang out with a girl neighbor until I was probably 10 or 11. So, I mean, you can't chase me nowhere with a bug. I mean, I can make a Coca-Cola can dance with a pistol, you know. But as far as putting on makeup and foo-foo shoes and all those things underneath that make this stand up and that lay down, I don't know nothing about, you know. I'm learning that from y'all, you know, and I'm grateful for the women who's willing to teach me those lessons because, you know, Mama cared about having food on the table. She didn't care about what color the curtains were and if my shoes, you know, or my pants went all the way to the floor. I mean, you know, she shopped at the dollar store, and with that wash and wear, you wear it one time, you wash it, and you got to throw it away because it shrinks up even quicker. But anyway, you know, and I found out those kind of things in that treatment center with my first inventory. And when I got ready to come home, they wasn't ready for me to come home. They wanted me to go to a halfway house. Well, that scared me because the halfway house they wanted me to go to was full of women. Now, I don't know what you do with a big pack of women. I know what you do with a big pack of boys, but girls scared me. And, you know, and one of my greatest fears was going to that halfway house with those women and confessing, you know, today is just as important as it was then. Anytime I'm in a situation and I don't know what to do, and I tell you, honestly, I don't know what to do, will you help me? You always do. Now, we laugh like everything the next day because some of my situations get funny, but at that moment, you don't laugh at me, and that's what happened in this halfway house because they had rules. They wanted us to travel in groups, and they wanted us to wear all of our clothes. Well, I didn't even own the clothes they wanted me to wear. It had been a long time. I mean, they get, some of that stuff get hung up under the seat, under the, back before. Well, they probably had electric seats, but I wasn't affiliated with those. I had that button thing that you pull and lay back and all that. Well, all my stuff always get tangled up in it, and you tear it up trying to get it out, or it'd get greasy and you couldn't wear it because Mama couldn't get the grease out, or she'd ask where it come from and couldn't tell her that. So I just quit wearing all that crap. Or you get tangled up in it trying to get it on, and I'd be drunk and tickled and couldn't get up out of the floorboard, it just got to be too much trouble. So I'd quit wearing a lot of that stuff. And so now I got to wear it again. And I don't even own it. So I got to confess to these girls, I didn't have to. I asked them. I said, I told them that we needed to go shopping and that I needed to buy some clothes, and I didn't know what size I wore. So those ladies put me in that dressing room, and they started parading panties and bras across the store for me to try on. And, that's what happens with y'all. Anytime I let that pride and ego down and say, you know what, I really don't know how to do this. Somebody has been there and done that before me, and y'all show me how. And, and I think about that today, and I am up here, and I'm fully dressed, and and everything fits, So sometimes in my head I get better than I really am, and and I don't ever want to forget where I come from because y'all have told me, and I have seen people who do, and I don't want to be one of those that have to come back in here because I might not make it. I tell you, it gets worse. I'm just so full of gratitude for this program, and thank you for the program and for what y'all have taught me and the woman I've become, and I couldn't have never done it without y'all. I tried doing it by myself, and I damn near died. And I get out of this, I do the halfway house thing, and I found out the importance about that halfway house trip was to me about letting you know who I really am, and then also about finding out that I always thought women were my trouble. I always thought that y'all were the enemy, and what I found out is I was my own enemy. I was doing the things I was accusing everybody else of doing, and that's the reason you wasn't to be trusted. And I didn't know that then. I thought it was all y'all's fault. Well, I come out of that treatment center, and I go to this little town, and the town you can pack in this facility. It was a small town, and I joined a group there. I mean, they had one group. It had a couple of meetings a week, and that's what we did. I didn't know I had a choice. I could really relate to Deb and those old guys. They just absolutely saved my life, and I see some of y'all here. And I'm grateful y'all are here, and I'm grateful you stay here, and I'm grateful that you care enough about us women getting sober instead of getting in our pants, because we need that. And I had an old guy tell me that in that meeting, and I was offended, I mean, I done got sober and cleaned up. I was looking pretty good, and then he told me that, and it pissed me off. I brought one sick cookie here. I'm not kidding you. So we go to this meeting, and in that treatment center, I'm an alcoholic and an addict. And every time I'd say that in that meeting, this old guy'd scream about his hemorrhoids in the back of the room. I'm going, what's the point? I mean, what's up with that? He said, that's right. And then it wouldn't matter if it was birthday night and there was 12 people there. He'd still scream about them stupid hemorrhoids. And finally, I asked somebody, why does he do that to me? He picks on me every time. He taught me how to pray. I would pray he'd have a wreck and die every meeting night. He'd show up, sure enough. And then he taught me about principles before personalities, because that old man wasn't going to take my seat in AA, and I'd cuss him all the way home. And then I'd come back the next week. Still praying for him, but he'd show up. So finally, I asked somebody, why does he do that? And they said, Sandy, here's the deal. If you're an alcoholic and anything else in these rooms, you're saying you're different from us. And if you're different from us, what we're doing might not work for you. Why don't you get in Bill's story, try Bill's story, and identify with how he felt. Because Bill done drugs. He talks about it in that story. But he don't identify himself as an alcoholic and anything else. Because he's got that peculiar mental twist. And you got it, because you don't think like most people do. And so I run off to read Bill's story, and I guarantee you I could identify with a lot of things Bill said. He was drinking and doing dope. He tried to kill himself. He wanted to kill himself, but he didn't have the guts, and I could identify. He felt like he had arrived when he got this particular job, and I had that feeling. He knew what it felt like when people talked about how much he drank, so he'd quit hanging out with them. And I've done that. And he would go to the bar, going to have a couple of drinks, and then he'd wind up drunk. And I've done that. I have tried to drink like some people I used to work with. Go have two and then go home and get on with the rest of your life, and it never worked. Never, ever. I didn't see the point of 2 beers. If you only got 2, don't serve me. That won't even get, I can't comprehend 2 beers today. It don't make no sense. So I go in there and I identify with Bill, and I go to that meeting, and I'm an alcoholic. And I don't hear nothing out of that old guy. I told somebody I could cure hemorrhoids. I could so much identify with you last night, because whoever had the biggest car, that's who drove to the meetings, because we went to a meeting every night, and we'd have the meeting going on the drive, we'd have the meeting there. It's where I didn't ask questions because I didn't want them to know I didn't know. And then we'd have the meeting going home, and then that's when I'd ask my silly little questions. And then we'd get home if some of us didn't have to work, and we'd put on the coffee pot, and we'd stay up till 1 o'clock in the morning talking about God. We almost lived with each other. We were like a little pack of ducks. You see one, you saw us all. And today, today in the meetings that some of my problems, in some of the meetings I go to, a lot of people come in at 5 minutes till, sit down 5 minutes after they're gone, and I'm going to tell you, you want to see how good you are, you raced and beat the newcomer to the door. It's a test with the girls I sponsor. And I tell you what, it makes me smile when I can beat them. I'm an example. I got to be. Who's leading the pack of the ducks? Me. As crooked as I'm walking, I'm in front, And, and I'm grateful I can walk crooked. It's okay. But we get in that car and we go to those meetings, and I'm going to tell you what. We get in a big book, and I do an inventory, and I find a lot of things about me that I already knew, but I just hadn't had a word for it. I thought I was crazy. So many people had called me crazy when they would drink with me. Sandy, only crazy people do that. I had a brand new truck one time. I had it loaded full of just friends, and we were all drunk. And I'd drive out in the middle of the river just to see if it'd really float or go across it or whatever. Sane people don't do that. Insane people do. People trying to prove a point do. People trying to prove that they're as good as do. People who's trying to be accepted do. Not anybody with any sense, I didn't know that. I found out that through those inventories. And we got to go to these meetings, and we were talking at that same dinner table last night about we need to have a session on dating in AA. If there's newcomers here, I want to tell you about my first AA date. The guy comes, picks you up, takes you out to dinner either before or after the meeting. He comes to your house to get you, and y'all go out to dinner. You go to the meeting. He brings you home, and he leaves. I didn't see the point of an AA date. So I'm in the garden with this Al-Anon lady because I have since forgiven her, and I've asked her to sponsor me because there wasn't any women in my group. So this Al-Anon lady sponsored me, and I am forever grateful that she said yes. Some of us don't have back then, I think it may be different now, I don't know. Sometimes I don't think so, because a lot of people don't sponsor people in these meetings. We don't have time, our lives are busy for whatever reason, and this Al-Anon lady told me yes. So the amen and the Al-Anon lady double teamed me. And I'm a double winner because of that. Well, I'm not because I go to Al-Anon, because I got it from both sides. And I taught this lady. She was the one that taught me what girls did in the daytime, because I didn't know. I knew what they did at night, but I didn't know what they did in the daytime. And this Al-Anon lady took time out of her day to show me that. And she showed me how to dress myself and how to match up my clothes. And, she taught me about the curtains, and she taught me about cooking, and she taught me all those girl things. I always thought just the girl side in my head never developed, because I would see girls do with impunity things I did not know how to do. They would know how to wear makeup. Where'd they get that? Did I get it from a book or something? I don't know. Where did I get that information? Mama never wore makeup. So I didn't have an example, and I didn't know that. And I didn't know that those things were taught and learned behaviors. So this Al-Anon lady started teaching me some of this, and I'm in the garden with her, and I'm slinging mud and I'm cussing. Because this guy, we've been AA dating, and he ain't touching nothing, ain't wanting to kiss nothing, ain't wanting to... I'm going, well, what's wrong with him? Because I'm looking good. When I got sober, I'm a size 14 now. When I got sober, I was a size 7. So if you cut me in half, you about got it. Yeah, I know, bad. And I'm thinking I'm all that in a box of rocks, and I probably look like a popsicle stick or something. But anyway, and I'm mad because he's not grabbing or touching or feeling nothing, and I don't get it because I'm being nice, And so I'm slinging dirt, cussing him, and I'm asking her what's wrong with me. Well, actually, what's wrong with him? And she said, well, honey, he may be trying to teach you respect, show you respect. I said, respect? Well, that's when they've been with you one night and they come back the next day. That's respect. At that time, I was wanting some of that kind of respect. Thank you. I can imagine she about fell over them taters. Because I know how I do with the girls I try to sponsor today. I had a girl tell me, she said, Sandy, I almost had sex. I said, how in the world do you almost have sex? She said, I had it, I just didn't like it. She's obeyed. And it made absolutely perfect sense to her. If you're not sponsoring people, look what you're missing. Oh my hell. It's funny. So this lady was telling me that, and me and this guy, he finally asked me to marry him. And I couldn't believe it because he knew me. He knew I'd been with other men. He knew I'd sold myself on the streets of New Orleans. He known I'd done all that stuff, and he wanted to marry me anyway. Because I'd always heard about milking the cow before you bought it or tasting the milk before you bought something about experiencing a cow or something. And he didn't want to do that with me, and I didn't get it, And so we got married, and I'm going to tell you what, those Al-Anon ladies, they took our $50 and they gave us the most beautiful wedding you'd ever see. And they had some of the neatest food, and that's the program that I know where everybody comes together and we do for each other. It's not you do this and we do this, or it's not sided. It's everybody coming together and bringing everybody up and being of service to one another. And people from all over come because we travel the southeast of Georgia going to those meetings. And they all come, and my oldest brother gave me away, and that was a miracle of this program because he come down to New Orleans, found me selling myself on the streets and disowned me on the spot. And I was devastated by that, and because he was a God in my life. And through the series of amends that, looking at my part and the amends that we do here, he walked me down the aisle and gave me away. And I floated down that aisle that day, because he was back in my life. And that's one of the promises that we get here. If we clean up our side and just keep doing that right thing, they come around. But I'm going to tell you what, we didn't get that distrust overnight, and it takes more than overnight to get it back. So if you're in the middle of a situation and you don't know how long it's going to take, nobody has those answers, but just keep doing what you're doing. Because it took a long time for my brother to come around, my oldest brother. Because I was the only girl in the family, and I know I embarrassed him a lot with my behavior. But we walked out of that church, and then we walked off in the sunset and burned up. What I know about that is that I wasn't honest in that relationship. Well, I was honest as I could be at that point, but after a period of time, I was trying to get his God, and I was trying to do AA his way, and that wasn't working for me. And I thought I was wrong because his way wasn't working for me. I didn't know that it was okay to have my way. And I'm at a conference, and I have an affair at that conference, and I come back home and we get a divorce. Now, that's 3 quick sentences, but that was not how it went. Well, I did go to the conference. I did sleep with somebody, and I was kind of like Tarzan going through the jungle. I won't let go of a vine unless I got one. A good grip on one too. And Now, I'd love to tell y'all I did that drink, but I'm sober doing this, okay? And I'm not proud of that, but that's just how it happened. And, that guy was devastated, and the group took sides, and it was just the biggest mess you ever seen. And one more time, I'm a whore in the meeting, And I thought it took more than one to qualify, but obviously not. And I can't go back to the place that's safe. The people that talked about unconditional love, they were just doing the best they could. And I'm going to tell you what, it was hard. I'm forever grateful for the program of Narcotics Anonymous, because that's where I went. Because they didn't know who I was. They didn't care who I was. They just let me in. And I'm grateful for that, because I don't know where I'd be without that. Now, I'm about 5 years sober, and, drinking's not an option. Going back to meetings, I can't go because everybody hates me because of my behavior. And, but picking up a gun and blowing my brains out definitely is. And I thought about that old guy, the one I cured. I'm sitting there, I am just completely in pieces. And I've heard since that there's a bottom that brings you here, and there'll be a bottom that'll keep you here, and I understand what they're talking about with that. Because this was a bottom in sobriety that I hit, and I'm sitting on the side of the gun, I'm looking at this pistol, and I'm just wanting out, and I think about that old guy. And I know he has solution for me, because he always has. He's always been a man about talked about program of action, always gave me good, clear-cut directions, and I picked up the phone. Now, I hadn't talked to this man in a couple of years, because he knew what I was doing, and he told me that, it was not acceptable behavior and all that. So I cussed him out and walked off. And that's what I do. If you don't condone my behavior, I'd make it just cuss you out, and I'd go around and do it anyway. And, and I'd cuss that man up one side and down to the other. And if you give me 5 minutes, I'd tell you how terrible he was to me. And he was the person that God put in my mind that day. And I picked up the phone and I called him. And he said, "Honey, get in the car." I love that. Get in the car. And I got in the car and I drove over there. And that guy didn't say, why did you say all these things about me? And why'd you do that? And why'd you do this? He opened up his arms and I fell in them. And one more time, I fall in the arms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and y'all absolutely saved my life. And him and his wife were taping around the southeast, and he put me in their hip pocket, and I didn't have any money. And they paid for everything. I worked the tape table trying to pay my own way, and he allowed me the privilege of doing that. And I come and I listen to speakers talk about, golly, there was a guy from California. He was sitting in the room in the meetings with 3 ex-wives. And they wasn't fighting. Of course, I didn't believe it, so I went up and asked him. And he told me what he did there. He told me how he put principles before personalities. And it wasn't long after that I talked to that guy that I was at a district meeting. I was district secretary, and in come ex-husband. I went, oh, shit. And a hush just fell over the room, because they were looking for the fight to break out, because we had not been nice. It had been ugly and snot slinging and mud slinging and everything. It was bad. And then he come, I went, oh, crap. So here I go, making that 10,000-mile walk across the room, and I stuck my hand out and I said, I'm glad you're here. Because what I got to remember about people in these rooms is they're alcoholics too. And if they can't come here, where are we going to go? What is our options? I didn't pick this because I didn't have nothing to do on a Monday. After I walked across the room, the chatter started back up in the room, and everything was fine, and my gut settled down. Anytime I take appropriate action, my gut settles down, and it is absolutely the hardest walk you make. And it wasn't long after that, I'm thinking, well, if I had a couple of kids, I'd be all right. So I found me a man that had a couple, and I married him. I am not a newcomer in this, okay? I am that depends on where you are in your sobriety. I'm about 6 years sober when I'm doing this. Good Lord. And anyway, I married this guy, and I make all their business my business, and I try to take care of everybody, and I don't know what my part is, and I don't know what my part ain't, and I almost died in that relationship. And the one thing I know, I had changed because I didn't swing out on another vine. And sometimes, my spiritual experiences come in weird ways. And the fact that I wasn't riding the arm of another man out of this relationship was powerful to me. And there was kids involved, and, because of the principles of AA, I did not slam the father. I did not slam the mother and her girlfriend. I tried real hard to be principled in those actions, and that relationship changed in the network of that family, because dad would cuss the mom would cuss the dad, and the kids felt guilty for loving them both. So I told mom and dad, okay, you can cuss her all you want to, talk to me. I told her, you can cuss him all you want to, talk to me. Don't do it in front of those kids, because you're cussing their daddy and you're cussing their mama, and they love them, and you're keeping them confused. Let it be okay to love both parents. And that's stuff I learned here. Y'all taught me that. I had a guy, the old guy, he loved me and ex-husband. I was pissed about that, but he did. I'm telling you, I'm not well. I'm not well. And he showed me that example. And I'm so grateful for that. Well, one more time I'm getting divorced, and I run into this nosy neighbor, and she said, I know somebody you need to meet. And I said, get back, Jack. One thing I know about relationships is I don't know how to do them. I don't stay in them very long, and they are always painful for me and everybody else involved. But I told her, tell him to call me. Well, she said, he needs you. I'm all about service. Oh, God. That did not come out right. See, y'all taught me I don't have to guard any of that. I can just speak the truth, and we can just laugh about it and go on. So the guy called me, and he come down to the house. There was 2 doors separating us. He was my next door neighbor. I'd never seen him. But he come down, and we had a cup of coffee, and he was one of those nice guys. And I know there's some alcoholic women in here that knows what I'm talking about those nice guys. The ones you never deserved. The ones that didn't beat you up. The ones that had and kept a job. The one that would buy you dinner. The one that had a car. And he come and he had that pot of coffee, and we sit down and we talked, and the time just flew. It was like 8 o'clock when he got there, and it was about 11 when he left. And I couldn't believe it. I'd never been so comfortable around somebody. And the next day he bought me flowers, and I told a girl at work, he's weird. Because I didn't do nothing to deserve those flowers. And we were talking about that last night at dinner, some of our old ideas. My old ideas when I got here, and I've heard another AA speaker say, if a man patted her on her head, her pants fell off. That's me. Any amount of attention, and you could have everything I had. That old guy, the old guy's name is Bob. And Bob told me one time, he said, honey, you give everything you got, you just keep giving the wrong things. And I couldn't believe it, because all my life that's what I thought men wanted. So, I got this disease of perception. So anyway, me and this guy start dating, and I really like this guy, and things start going well. And I knew that if I didn't change something, it was going to be another series of dead bodies. Because I went to Bob one time and I said, why do I keep picking these sick men? He said, honey, the only common denominator in any of these relationships is you. He was that kind of guy. And I heard him in that. And so I told Wendell one day, I said, you know what, I really like you, and I need to do some work on me, and I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't want to see you anymore until I get to the other side of this. And I done an inventory like I'd never done an inventory on all my relationships, on my behaviors, and it wasn't anything earth-shattering. I found out I'm a kicking, screaming 2-year-old. I want everything my way, and I want it now. And I don't want to share with nobody. And that is not basis for a kind, loving, long-lasting relationship. And when I come up with that realization, I asked God to take me to a different place, because I didn't want to be like that anymore. I didn't know how to live with another human being, and I wanted to, And there's some mentors in this program, of kind, loving relationships, and I started watching them. And I started asking them, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? And the Al-Anon lady said, honey, I'm married one day at a time. I'm divorced tomorrow, but today I'm hanging in there. And I heard that. Because isn't that how we quit drinking, one day at a time? I mean, the hell it is today, but today I can get through it. I don't even think about tomorrow. Sometimes I can't even think about the afternoon, but right this minute I'm in it and I'm sitting down. I'm not giving up. And I've always thought the pastures were greener on the other side. And this Al-Anon lady said, well, maybe you just need to put some fertilizer on the grass you got. I'd never thought about that. I'd never thought about investing in the relationships that I had to make them better. I'd never thought about being honest with anybody in a relationship. I mean, really honest about how I felt and any of that. I mean, I played the little wife sheet or girlfriend sheet or, whatever sheet that I thought you had given me to perform until I couldn't do it anymore, and then I'm out the door. And that's not what this relationship is about. It's just not like that. And I woke up that morning and I knew that I knew. And he called me that day. And he said, honey, I need to talk to you. I said, I need to talk to you too. And we've been together ever since. One day at a time. About this time in my life, I'm looking for a woman sponsor, and because I just know I need a woman sponsor. I try to be like the old guy, and if you don't want to read the big book, I hit you with it, and that's not the woman I want to be. And I was asking some women around the area to sponsor me, and they told me no. They knew about my reputation, and they didn't. For whatever reason, I don't know why they said no. They just said no, and so I didn't have any money. I got a tape in the mail, so thank you for taping this conference. I got a tape in the mail, and the lady said her first and last name from the podium. Because Sandy H. is not in the phone book. Sandy Hickox is. Sandy and Wendell in Pocatello. And she said her first and last name from the podium, and she said she was in a time in her sobriety where she knew she had to get in AA or get out, and I knew I was there. And so it took me a series of a couple of days to catch up with her, and I asked her if she'd sponsor me over the phone. And she said, well, I got some questions. She said, how many meetings are you going to a week? I said, I'm going to one. See, it don't work, one. I said, I'm going to one meeting a week, but in my head I'm going, well, how can I tell her about all those people that took sides and all that judgment? And I couldn't tell her. I stood up in front of the whole group and cussed them all out. And, I might need to make an amend there. I hadn't been, but I was honest. I told her one. She said, well, that's going to change. I'm going, uh-oh. But I said, okay to her. She said, I want you to start wearing a dress to your home group. And I'm going, a dress? People bury people in a dress. I mean, you don't wear them to meetings. You go to meetings in your sweats where you're comfortable and can relax, and, you don't go dressed up. But out loud to her, I go, yes, ma'am. She said, we'll go through the big book. We'll set up a time to meet convenient to her. Thinking to myself, I'm just asking you to be my sponsor. You're supposed to be available to me 24/7. What do you mean convenient to you? But out loud to her, I said, yes, ma'am. And then she said, we'll start going through the big book. And I've been in a big book meeting ever since I've been sober. I am one of the big book thumpers in my area. Out loud to her, I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, then we're going to go through the 12 and 12 and through the service manual and then through the concepts. I'm thinking in my head, them concepts are only for the lawyers up in New York of AA. We don't need the concepts. Shows you how stupid I was. But out loud to her, I said, yes, ma'am, and that's what we started doing. And this lady sponsored me a year and a half before she ever laid eyes on me. That's principles before personalities. Long-distance sponsorship don't work for many people, but if you're willing and you want to take that action, it'll work for anybody. I remember me and my husband today, at that time I don't think we were married, we were doing like a little weekend getaway, and he had to pull off the side of the road in the middle of a freeway trying to find a payphone for me to make my call check-in time. He said, this is ridiculous. I said, you know what? I don't want to miss it. Because I missed one, and she said, if you miss another one, it'll be 6 months before I schedule another call time with you. She said, Sandy, you got to understand, you're important to me. Our time on the phone is important, and I'm busy in AA. And I just want you to know that you're important to me. That's the reason I schedule time. I'm important. I'm special. That's my time. You know, that makes me feel so wonderful that I am that special to somebody that they'll set a time in their day just for me. You know, just for me because they love me and I'm special. Isn't that all we always wanted, just to be special to somebody? You know, I'm honored that that woman takes time to take my calls on a daily basis. Not daily, but twice a week is our call time now. But we started doing that, you know, and I had to go to that meeting and make amends for cussing all those people out. You know, because I had to make more than one meeting a week. Jeez. I tried going out of town. It just didn't work. You know, we ain't going to jump right in this step work, you know. And me and Wendell, you know, it's kind of like God just opened up the fairy tale and threw us in it and said, y'all go and have a good time. And we did. You know, I told him when I married him that AA come first. And, you know, neither one of us realized what that meant. I mean, he stays home he's home this weekend, you know. We're not where we can afford for him to travel with us every time. You know, so we pick a couple of conferences a year and then we go, you know, we save up and we go to them and that's what we do. You know, he's home babysitting a little sick dog we have and he's doing things at home so I could be here doing this. You know, that's the kind of support I have. I've been sitting in a meeting where a woman had to fight her husband to get out and go to a meeting. That's not my story. My husband is my biggest supporter and my biggest fan, you know, because he knows without y'all I am dead, you know, and he knows this is what God's called me to do. You know, it's not my deal to come to Arkansas, you know. Wouldn't have been a place I'd pick, you know. But I'm here and I am so grateful because it's been an awesome experience. But this lady started sponsoring me and Wendell lost his job. Now, I'm real spiritual when we got money. He lost his job and all the toys started going because we can't pay for them. And then she tells me to go to the group and tell them. Can't go to the group and tell them they're having to repossess the car because and now this is not just a car, it is a sports car. And I look really good driving it. And I look real good hauling newcomers in it. In lies the problem. And so she said, you need to go tell them, you know, go tell the group. Okay. So I go tell the group, I'm saying, you know, he lost his job and we're having to let some things go. And she said, and then you ask those people you sponsor to pick you up and carry you to the meeting. God. Does it get any worse, you know? I mean, I'm the one with the job. I'm the one carrying the newcomers. I'm the one buying the dinners. I'm the one, you know. And I tell you what I learned about that is there's as much a lesson in giving as there's more in receiving for an alcoholic, for me. Because I am so prideful and so egotistical, it's so hard for me to accept help and even harder to ask for it. And that has, I mean, it's, I want to say it gets easier, but I'd be lying. It just don't. I get desperate enough to do it, is a word that I can use. And those girls started carrying me to meetings and they started buying my coffee, you know, and then, you know, my sponsor told me how to line up my clothes in the closet where I looked like I had something new every day. You know, she told me how to, you know, we had like $20 left a week and we divided the days up and that's how much you got to spend that day. And if you save twice, you can buy a Coca-Cola the next day. And that's what I did. And on the days I didn't buy that Coca-Cola, that quarter went in the basket. You know, and here I am, you know, I ought to be able to put more in the basket than this, but I just don't have the money. And my sponsor said, you know what? You can pick up them chairs in the meeting and support the meeting that way. You can stick out your hand to the newcomer and support the meeting that way. Financial means is not the only thing that runs a meeting. You know, why don't you start hugging some of those people? Because you need those hugs. You know, and my husband found a job and, well, we put his resume on an internet job site and Quest Communications picked him up the next day. The next day. He had a job the next day. In Iowa, Idaho, Wendell, where are we going? And they gave him like a week to pack his little truck. And he packed his little truck and went out to Idaho. Now, I'd heard the stories about people moving and, you know, with time, because at this time I'm 15 years sober and, you know, and I'm scared, you know, because they go out there and we heard it talked about they're not doing it right. And, you know, then people get mad and get pissed off and they walk out and they get drunk. And I'd heard that. And I told Wendell, I said, when you get there and get in them meetings, you let me know. I want 2 phone numbers. and I want some phone numbers because I'm going to call these women and I'm going to tell them, I'm going to be out there on this date, and if I'm not in a meeting with a week, well, don't even wait that long. But if you don't see me in a meeting in a couple days, you come get me because I will not have sense enough to get there by myself. Because I get in my head, and I'm crazy there. And those ladies did, and I called, I wanted a meeting schedule from the answering service, and I called the guy and I said, well, is there a place where I can sign up for snow driving lessons? Because, I'm from Georgia, for God's sakes. I've seen snow 3 times in my life, right? And he said, honey, lady, most of us just get in the car and drive. So I moved to Idaho, and I'm going to tell you, that was one spooky experience because, and before I left Georgia, they gave me a going-away party. And a lot of these people, they were glad that I was in their life, and I was so touched by that. I couldn't believe it, and we moved out to Idaho, and of course they didn't do it right, and, my sponsor wouldn't let me start a new group and show them how it's done. She told me, some of those people are staying sober before you got there. I couldn't believe it. She said, why don't you pick a meeting that really needs some help and go in there and show them Alcoholics Anonymous? Show them your example. Don't tell them nothing. Show them your example. And I picked a women's meeting. And at that time, that women's meeting was known as the lesbian group, And I we get some weird ideas, and I took the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in that meeting, and I started sponsoring some of those women, and some of those girls were lesbians, but it was not a lesbian meeting. It's a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, a women's meeting. And I'm going to tell you, when I started going to that meeting, there was probably like about 5 people that regularly attend that meeting. And today, because of Alcoholics Anonymous and what has shown me and what I've been able to show them, and what they do on their own, without even me there, that meeting's 35 and 40 women every Monday night. The program of... I heard another speaker say, a meeting where anything goes, nobody goes. And when you have a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, it is an attraction. And we don't let men not come in there. If a man needs a meeting, we open up the meeting and he's welcome. It's a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what we do. And I'm going to tell you, some of those women are just the neatest people I'd ever met. My mama got sick, and I had not lived with her since I'm 14, 13, whatever. And I asked her, I said, why don't you come out here and stay with me in Wendell? She said, I don't know about that. Because the person she knew was a little B, and I was just a little hellion and stuff like that. And then she got to thinking about it. I said, well, come out here for a week. If you don't like it, you can go back home. Because she wasn't sick enough where she needed help in her house, to stay in like a hospital place, but she just couldn't take care of a house all by herself. So she packed one suitcase for a week to come to Idaho, and she never left. Because of what y'all showed me, I was able to be a kind, loving daughter to that woman. Because of what you showed me, I was able to give her a safe place. Because of what you showed me, I was able to just treat her with the dignity and the respect that a woman who raised and went through as much shit as she did with me deserves. That she got sick, and she loves my husband better than me. She does. He treated her better than her own sons did, and they learned from that example. And that's an example that y'all have shown us and him. And the brother started treating her different, and she moved in, and we just had a ball. There wasn't ever any harsh words, and she got sick. I was at work, and she got sick, and she went to the hospital, and she went in a coma. And the last words out of her mouth was, "This is my son-in-law, and he treats me good." While I was holding her hand, waiting on her to pass, there wasn't all that, "Mama, I wished I coulda," or "Mama, I should have not said," or "Mama, I wished I'd have done." All that had been done because of the gift, what y'all have done with me in my life. And I was able to just sit there and hold her hand and let her pass and just hug her and kiss her and be grateful I had an opportunity to have that woman in my house. Yeah, no good. During this time, the 2 years that she was here, my husband had a stroke. And My mama was the one that taught him how to read again, And right after Wendell had his stroke and I'd had some surgery, y'all brought a meeting to our house, and my mother was able to sit in on that meeting. And she felt it. You know how we get them with what we feel. We don't know what's here, but it's so powerful. And my mama felt that. She said, I've never felt that in any church I ever attended. She said, I know you're going to be okay here, because you got good friends here. Y'all filled up the house. Y'all brought more food than we could stir with a stick. My brothers, I've got 3 of them. All my brothers were able to come to Idaho to the funeral, and then they went to my home group. And what y'all did with them in my home group, they can't define yet. They don't know what got them. My oldest brother particularly my oldest brother, because he's got 2 kids that are out there running them streets, and they're just giving them hell. And he saw what y'all have done with me, and he felt the love and all that kind of stuff. And he knows when they get ready, Alcoholics Anonymous is waiting on them, and I've told him that. I've sent him a big book. I've sent him a lot of stuff, and he's interested in it. I didn't shove it down his throat. I waited till he come to me, and y'all have shown me how to do that. My husband has recovered from that stroke. When he gets tired, he has a little speech impediment, and that's all. But I'm going to tell you, a stroke changes people. And it changed our relationship. And I'm back to one day at a time. And sometimes I don't know the man that's in my house. And he probably don't know me either. It's a new day. All my life, I'd wanted those greener pastures. And today I wouldn't take nothing for where I'm at, and for the husband that I have, and for the job that I have, for the home group I have, for the car I'm driving, or anything. Y'all have given me that. And I thank you so much. Thank you.